When I woke up today, I had a 25% chance to win the NFC East. Now, 12 hours later, I have a 50% chance to win the NFC East because either the Eagles win it or Carson Wentz wins it, and that makes me look right. So my odds of winning the NFC East have doubled in the span of one day. You can't beat it.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things. I got 2 phones. Upset alert. Upset alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there. There's no hope. Hope is gone.
If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes.
Bob Hope.
I'm going to drink bleach. That
is the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.
What's going on, everybody? It is episode 107 of Birds vs. Boys. I'm Aidan here, and if you're hearing my voice, you know the drill by now. That means Kevin is out on baby duty. We do expect to have him next week because we're getting back on our interview circuit next week. But in the meantime, back by popular demand, I do have my good friend Keith Walsh, and as we were talking, it is not lost on me the irony that Carson Wentz was traded today, and the two Gingers are going to hold down the podcast tonight. So, Walsh, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. I think it's absolutely hilarious that Ginger Jesus gets traded, and the two Gingers, here at Birds vs. Boys, get to talk about it. So, wouldn't have it any other way.
There are so many everything happens for a reason examples going on right now, but behind the scenes for us. So obviously producer Vince is with the show every week. He's actually out sick. Kevin's not back yet. And Eddie had like a last minute work emergency. So it was about to be the core 4 again that we had last week. I promise we're not canceled, even though that could have happened based on how last week went, but that's how it was going to go. And then they had to back out. Those two had to back out last minute. So it's just us two Gingers. And it's just like the day that Carson Wentz gets traded. It could not have worked out perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah, and I had to show up. This was not planned. I made sure to wear my Carson Wentz jersey to come on here.
Oh, yeah.
So, had to do it. Still rocking it. Did not throw it away after he was traded because I knew it was going to come in handy one of these days again. And here it is.
Yeah. I still have mine in the back of the closet. As soon as I saw yours, I was like, all right, I'm rocking mine too. We're doing a Wentz jersey extravaganza on the show. But let's get into it. So Carson Wentz traded to the Washington Commanders, back in the division. When you saw the tweet, when you saw that trade went down, give me first your initial reaction.
I was floored, honestly. I was having a conversation with a person at work yesterday. We were just talking football, and I was like, yeah, I think, Wentz is going to end up with the Steelers. And as we're having that conversation at lunch, sure enough, flashes across the TV screen. Aaron Rodgers gets his deal, and then Wilson's traded. So I was like, yeah, all right, this is lining up perfectly. Like, I can see Wentz going to Pittsburgh. Just seems right. He seems like a guy that would just make sense with the Steelers at this point. And then today I saw this, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, wait a minute. I was like, okay, all right. I mean, I guess I knew they were looking for a quarterback, but for him to come back to the NFC East, not even a full, I guess it is a full year later, but it's just wild that now we get to see him twice a year after the whole Ben Simmons trade. So now we have Ben Simmons and Carson Wentz multiple times a year. It couldn't happen to a better city than Philadelphia because this is going to go one of two ways.
That is one of my initial thoughts as well. And I don't know if you remember that show, My Name is Earl. Have you ever seen that?
Seen bits and pieces of it, yeah.
All right, so basically the premise, if you remember the show My Name is Earl, it was like this guy who did a lot of wrongs, and then he made a list, and he did everything he could to try to be a better person, but he kind of ended up just like constantly being like in the trouble, in the mud, everything like that. That is Philadelphia right now. We're trying to rebuild our reputation at all times, and then you just serve us Carson Wentz and Ben Simmons on a silver platter. The day before, Ben Simmons is going to sit on a bench and get taunted for 2 hours so we can file his stupid grievance. We find out that Carson Wentz is going to play us every year, twice a year, and once at Lincoln Financial Field. We're trying to be better people, and they just won't let us.
No, this is literally them saying, We want Philadelphia to remain the scumbags of the reputation that they have. So let's give them everyone that they hate and make sure that we give every opportunity for them to see them and have Philadelphia be on their worst possible behaviors when they come to town.
Yes, you try to change, you try to be a better person, but sometimes people are just who they are. That's why I think at this point we might as well just embrace it. Just be the petty jackasses who are constantly heckling people. We should just embrace it at this point. There's no more like, oh, we don't have a jail anymore at Veterans Stadium because we have the link now. No.
Bring it back.
There's bring the jail back. Let's just rebrand back to just being jackasses, I think.
I need... Instead of what is overplayed is the snowballs at Santa Claus. What is now going to be in is snowballs at Wentz, because that's what's going to happen when the Washington Commanders, which still trying to process their name because I keep wanting to just call them the football team. So used to it. Should have just kept it that way, but whatever. Different topic. I need Carson Wentz in the middle of December in Philadelphia getting snowballs pelted at him as he leaves the field, because that's just, that's going to be what's the new thing is.
It's going to be very similar to when Deshaun Jackson came back when he played for Washington, and that was just absolute chaos because there was a fight during the game, so the fans were riled up as it is, and it was just like not harassment, but you could just feel the negative energy towards him in the stadium, and I think he scored that day too, so it made it even worse. But I feel like it'll be a lot like that. This for Wentz, though, just you couldn't pick a worse franchise to go to. Just given the injuries that have been sustained on FedEx Field and how many quarterbacks have been ruined by that franchise, you wouldn't want to go anywhere worse. For a religious man like Wentz, I don't know how you could deal with Dan Snyder being your boss, who is pretty much like the Antichrist of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, all the controversy that they have surrounding them, even after the name change, like everything that's been going on with that organization over the last 10 to 15 years, a good Catholic Christian guy like Carson Wentz, it doesn't make sense for him to be with Washington. It makes zero sense at all. And the injuries that he's had, now going to a historically very dangerous field, proven again last year when the fence fell on Jalen Hurts. So Wentz may not even get to play a game with them. If the fence is not fixed, that could fall on him and he could be done before he even gets started.
Yeah.
So we're excited to get to see Carson Wentz twice a year, but the likelihood of that happening, him playing any games on FedEx Field, I'll be shocked if he does not have so many injuries within this first year.
Yeah, like you honestly have actual concern for the guy.
Yeah.
Injury wise, for someone who had multiple season ending injuries, for him to be in this position, just I can't get over it. And just his values, he's very religious. He talked about getting off social media and reading the Bible back when it started to get criticized. And now he's going to a franchise where he talked about Commanders not rolling off the tongue yet. Well, they made that announcement the day before there was more sexual harassment allegations within the organization. Like nothing about this meshes for him at all.
No, it really is just a wild situation. And I'm wondering if he really had any say. I mean, he didn't have a no movement clause or anything like that, right? So no, it's not like he could pick that he wanted to go to Washington, but you have to wonder if he's thrilled about the idea, because now not only the whole organization problems, but he now has to go and play against his former team, the team that drafted him twice a year, if he wins the starter job, if everything goes as planned, which, I mean, it's a tough situation for him to be in. And he's back in, a highly popular football area. The media is not always friendly in Washington. I mean, Kirk Cousins was treated poorly there. And we've seen him, go to Minnesota and kind of not have the outburst and stuff and not really in that spotlight. And he's done well, not great, but, he's done decent for himself in Minnesota. Yeah. So it's just interesting to see what's going to happen here with Wentz going forward.
Yeah. So here's my whole thing. Obviously, I'm biased. We talked about this last week, how I just can't let the Carson Wentz thing go.
Yeah.
I thought he fit a lot better in Indianapolis. It seemed like this time around, there weren't issues in the locker room. The players seemed to actually like him.
Yeah.
aside from like the one T.Y. Hilton thing where he liked that tweet about missing Andrew Luck, which is fine. I mean, T.Y. Hilton missed over half the season injured, so it wasn't like they were playing together anyways.
And Andrew Luck is a much better quarterback, in my opinion, than Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and it's like they played together for so long, that makes sense. Yeah. But it just felt like there was a better rapport with Wentz and the Colts. I really think the GM was sold on him. The coach was sold on him. Players seemed to like him. The owner wanted nothing to do with him. And in order to keep their jobs, they had to get rid of Wentz. And I know the story came out today. Wentz tried to meet with Jim Irsay to clear the air. They originally weren't able to meet. They eventually did get to meet and everything like that. There were comments all year where Irsay was clearly not thrilled that Wentz wouldn't get vaccinated. He ended up not having to miss games from it, but it did affect his play against the Raiders. And I think that like irked Jim Irsay. And he made the call where he's like, I'm not sold on this guy. So you guys aren't sold on this guy or else you're not keeping your job.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Because honestly, I mean, as much as I've kind of shitted on Wentz here to start, I've loved the guy. He's always been a quarterback that I didn't want him gone when the Eagles traded him. I was always Team Wentz, was hoping that we were going to get able to figure it out and hope that he went to Indianapolis and had a great year. He didn't play bad for the Colts at all. They were a decent team. They were making the playoffs up until the last game of the regular season.
So that's the crazy thing to me is 2020 Wentz was dreadful. Like he honestly just made brutal mistakes. The team itself wasn't good. It was clearly falling apart. But this year, we did not get a bad version of Carson Wentz. You pretty much got the 2019 version where we went 9-7 and won the division and he had a great December. That's the version of Carson that the Colts got. And now I guess they're targeting Jimmy Garappolo. Like, is it my bias towards liking him, or is this just weird that like you got rid of Wentz because you're targeting Jimmy G? What?
The only thing that I could think of with that is I'm with you. I think Jimmy G and Carson are very similar.
Yeah.
Jimmy G makes a lot of dumb decisions, and that's proven with the interceptions that he's thrown. However, his playoff record does speak for itself. When these games matter, he's very good. He manages the game well, and he ends up getting wins in the playoffs. And he did it this year. I mean, they beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in Lambeau, I believe, right? That was yeah. So, like, I think maybe that late season and playoff success is kind of maybe their reasoning because we haven't seen that from Wentz. You know, he missed the playoff run when the Eagles won the Super Bowl because of the injury. Missed the entire Seahawks game other than 2 plays in his second playoff appearance. Still want this on record too, because I don't think I've said it on a football podcast ever. The Eagles win that game if Carson Wentz doesn't get taken out by that cheap shot.
Yes.
I digress. Then, you know, we don't see any more playoff success or anything from him after that because he misses the next Eagles playoff run. So it's like, I could see why they'd want to move on for someone that has at least proven they are worth it trading for in the later games of the season. And
I can see that. I this whole year I was like, Jimmy G's better than what people give him credit for. I think the butt of the internet jokes, it's like Kirk Cousins number 1, Wentz 2, and then probably Garappolo 3 in terms of just like people getting made fun of for dumb mental mistakes on the football field. But what's crazy to me is the Colts wanted a quarterback because they thought they had the core around the quarterback that was good enough to win a Super Bowl. And 2 things with that. The 49ers thought they had the core around the quarterback to win a Super Bowl and said, we don't think Jimmy G is the guy who can get it done, so we're drafting another quarterback. And now the Colts are like, all right, we have the core, so we're going to get Jimmy G. And it's like, it should be a red flag that the other team didn't think he could get it done. And we talked about Wentz like playing better this season and really returning not to MVP form in 2017, but at least 2019 version. There were a lot of games, and we watched a lot because we needed 75% of the snaps, where the defense was not as good as what we expected the Colts to be. Like, the offensive line wasn't as good. They turned out to not just Wentz. Like, I feel like the team around him wasn't as good as what they expected.
No, not at all. And going back to Jimmy G, the 49ers had an incredible defense. So, like, I don't know if you're really getting much better if they are going to go after Jimmy G. And I'm a Colts fan, I am angry right now. I am very pissed off. If you knew that there had to be a certain point of the season where, even if it was later in the season, that they knew Wentz wasn't their guy going forward. They knew they were going to get to a point where he was going to be moved, released, whatever it may be. Why are you starting him knowing that if he gets that 75%, the Eagles get the draft pick? What is the thought process there? Now, granted, yeah, are you getting it back with the trade? Kind of, but not really. I don't think it's a clean, bill of swap there. It's not exactly what you gave up. So you basically gave up a lot to get the guy, to keep him for a season, just to give him up for not as much. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, if I'm a Colts fan, not very happy right now.
No, I think you have to be infuriated with the whole process. There was a game this year where it was Monday Night Football. The Colts had over 500 yards of offense. They blew an 18-point lead, and Lamar Jackson was the first quarterback to have over 400 total yards himself, and I believe it was 300 passing, 100 rushing. And it's one of those games where you're like, all right, what did you want Wentz to do differently in that one? He threw for over 400 yards, and that's what it's like. There's a lot of other red flags that they need to be focusing on. And I think if you're a fan, you're saying, all right, well, everything really went wrong for us. Wentz got hurt early, but he was able to come back. But Quentin Nelson got hurt. The defense had a bunch of injuries. The O-line in total had a bunch of injuries. If we just had another year to kind of regroup this thing, we'd be all right. Instead, we've gone through 5 quarterbacks in 5 years. We kind of are now in a gray area again at quarterback. And it's just all right, what's the plan? It's odd to me that they gave up on him. I guess, I don't know. It's just a little bit odd to me. It could be my bias, but if I'm a fan, I'm like, all right, at least run it back one more year.
Yeah, I felt like the fans were kind of out on him to begin with. They weren't a fan of the trade in Indianapolis when it started. And unless I saw things wrong, but I just feel like there was a lot of hatred by Colts fans towards Wentz, as soon as he got there. I
thought they were I was so shocked because it felt totally opposite of Philly during the season. They're at first, I feel like when the trade first got announced, they're like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
But that's because he played so poorly in 2020. That's a acceptable reaction. But during the season, they seemed very supportive of Wentz and questioning the team. And they're a lot of fans I'd see comment what do you want him to do behind this offensive line that's banged up? And just a lot of stuff like that. And just again, the defense blowing leads and stuff like that. So it was it was odd because it was a complete 180 of Eagles fans were a lot of Eagles fans were I can't do this Wentz thing anymore. And Colts fans were Wentz is one of the only things that's working for us and everything else is falling apart. So it was just a total 180 from a year apart.
Yeah, I don't even know. I hate teams that give up on quarterbacks that quickly. It makes no sense to me because you're invested. It's an investment. A quarterback is an investment position. Yes, you're going to have good years, bad years. It's very rare that you have a Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers where every year they're going out there putting up crazy numbers. I get it. Wentz doesn't have the best history with that. But his last 2 seasons have not, or 2 of his last 3 seasons have not been horrible.
Yeah.
They've been close to his MVP year.
I'd say above league standard. You got to ask yourself, if not this, then what is better? And I just don't know what's better right now. You could say Jimmy G, but does that get you closer to a title? And I just don't think so. So I don't know. I'm with you. When teams give up on quarterbacks too quickly, you're constantly in a cycle of it's like the Sacramento Kings in basketball. They constantly give up on young talent, and then you're constantly back in the lottery. You see these teams that give up on young quarterbacks, then it's over. It's just over.
Yeah.
And for the Colts, I feel like they're now in this weird cycle again.
And it's not like they have an incredible receiving core. It's not Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison out there.
No.
All right.
No.
What they got? Michael Pittman and then who? T.Y. Hilton is 50 years old at this point. He barely played this season. What's his name? Who's their tight end?
They have Mo Alley Cox. He's solid.
Yeah, he's okay, I guess. You know what I mean? They don't have I mean, they have a decent running game, but you're not, again, the problem that the Eagles had with Wentz when he was here, you didn't surround him with weapons.
Yeah.
He's not the type of guy that's going to make a nobody a superstar. Just not his thing. He does need, other talent around him. And the Colts didn't really have that. Michael Pittman was great, yeah, but I mean, if you were going to run it back with 37-year-old T.Y. Hilton, who's got 2 horrible legs and 16 concussions, I mean, come on.
Wasn't going to work out for you. Yeah, I guess Terry McLaurin's probably going to be the best wide receiver that Wentz will play with. So on that, at least that's good from the Commander side. My last point on Wentz, I'm like the meme and the scene from It's Always Sunny. I'm playing both sides so that I can come out on top. When I woke up today, I had a 25% chance to win the NFC East. Now, 12 hours later, I have a 50% chance to win the NFC East because either the Eagles win it or Carson Wentz wins it, and that makes me look right. So my odds of winning the NFC East have doubled in the span of one day. You can't beat it.
I mean, that's a brilliant way to look at it. Oh, man, can you imagine the storylines if Wentz now – it was one thing for him to go to another team, in the Midwest or out West, wherever it may be, and win a Super Bowl. If he comes into the Eagles division, beats them twice a year, goes on and wins a Super Bowl with one of our rivals, oh, my God, sports radio is going to lose it.
Oh, we will implode. We will implode on ourselves. I think the best case scenario here is we win the division because Carson Wentz beats Dak Prescott in a game. And it's just like, this is chef's kiss irony.
That would be incredible.
I don't think you could beat that. So that's Wentz talk with the two gingers on gingers. I hope you enjoyed
your segment.
A great segment. I'm sure we will bring it back as we get closer to the season and we find out when and where and what week of the year we'll be playing Wentz. Not once, but twice. I still can't believe it. Speaking of the unbelievable, Calvin Ridley, who we talked about last week as a potential target for the Eagles, is no longer a target, considering the fact that he is suspended for the year for gambling on the NFL and on his team, the Atlanta Falcons.
I still want him.
Yeah. Buy low. You'll at least have him the year after.
You know what? If anything, make the trade even more now because his value is not going to be there. You can get him for like a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll give you our 6th-round pick this year. Give us Ridley. I don't care if he's sitting out this year. I'll take no stats from Ridley than a full year of Jalen Reagor because it's basically going to be the same thing.
That's true. Ridley would be a net 0.
Yes.
Right? Reagor is always a net negative. So we would actually be improving by just having by having Calvin Ridley bet on our games and sit at home.
And rumors are, and I mean, I don't want to put this out there if it's not true, but I'm just saying, I have seen some things. There were some bookies that I follow on Twitter that have said that Jalen Reagor was also placing bets. So I'm just saying the NFL should maybe look into it. If they have to suspend him, fine, not a big deal. We'll cut him. We'll get rid of him. But I think I could see it.
Full-fledged investigation, please, into that. we need it. For Ridley, though, I think I understand the punishment. It's also too harsh. I think both things can be true. I'll say this. He was betting on the Atlanta Falcons. Isn't that punishment enough? We've talked on this show multiple times and compared the Atlanta Falcons to a terrorist organization. If you were putting your hard-earned money on that team, that seems worse than a suspension to me.
I mean, it's safe to say most likely he lost those bets. So it's not like he was profiting off of it. And he, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't playing during the time. So Or was he during? I guess we didn't really find out.
It was that's what there's like the weird gray area, and it's like an ethics issue. He wasn't with the team. He was having a mental health issue, so there was no inside information used. He technically wasn't a part of the team at the time, but he did bet on the team. So it's kind of a weird area. It's not like he was in the locker room and like, oh, Matt Ryan's shoulder looks terrible. I think I'm going to throw 1,500 on the Saints this week. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, he was just he was in a bad place, in a bad time in his life and was gambling, which is also just all of us most Sundays.
Yeah. Calvin Ridley was being a normal dude on a Sunday is basically what happens. And again, I get the punishment from the NFL's, this is something they don't want to happen, but their history is so poor with the way that they suspend people for things. It's just like, it's almost too late at this point. Like, now you're going to suspend a guy a full year for gambling when guys that have, committed domestic violence get 2 games. Like, come on now. Like, and I get it. It's the past. They're trying to right the wrongs now. But when you do it this late and you've already had some crazy incidents that have gone basically unpunished, it just makes you even look more dumb.
Yeah, exactly. So, I get it. Like, Ray Rice got suspended 2 games. No, that was a terrible suspension. They did a terrible job, and that was just an all-time PR nightmare for them. But I also get why it's a year, because they know how much gambling drives this massive steamroll for them. And they just steamroll every other sport in terms of finances and viewership and everything like that. And gambling plays such a large part of that if you include fantasy football. So if players were involved in that and were impacting the outcome of games, it would obviously ruin them. So I think it's really the first incident we've had since gambling has been at our fingertips with all these apps with sports books on them. So I think he just is being made he's being made to the punishment is severe so that everybody realizes, do not do this. That's what they're trying to do. Also,
How dumb do you have to be, though, to place if you're going to gamble as an NFL athlete? Why are you doing it on a sports book?
I know.
That is the dumbest thing you could do. Find a local bookie that was going to take your knees out and pay him. Like, you don't put your information out there that anyone can see that works there. Like, oh, hey, this is clearly Calvin Ridley because you need to put your social security number in.
That's the craziest part. It's they have all of your information so that they legally know that you can gamble. That was the craziest part. It's like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just have a bag man where you give $1,500 to your friend and say, this is the parlay that I want. Put the $1,500 in for me. If I win, here's some of it for you.
Yeah.
That seems way more reasonable. And also is probably an issue that the league is going to be facing.
For sure. It blows my mind. But on the opposite end of that, though, I get it. We don't want players throwing games. We don't want any of that, obviously. And that's not what I'm trying to advocate here for. But when you brought up fantasy football, it is known that a lot of these guys do play fantasy football.
Yeah.
They talk about drafting themselves. They talk about guys that are on their team. And again, maybe they're not in money leagues, but come on. If you're an NFL player playing fantasy football, you're doing it for money. You're not just doing that for fun to join an ESPN room. You know what I mean? And again, it's not something that maybe is that serious because you can't really fully predict the outcome of a game, but you can still do stuff. I mean, let's say you're in a $2,000 entry fee for a fantasy football league, and you know that your buddy drafted you and you need 50 yards to hit a milestone or whatever it may be. That might be in the back of your head, right?
Yeah. It's just the whole thing. I think it's opening Pandora's box. It's there's so many ways to make money on football now and lose money on football now. Yeah. Fantasy football, daily fantasy, gambling, parlays, individual player prop boosts. There's just so many ways to make and lose money that eventually the players are going to be like, how do I get my cut of this? This is $1 billion industry, and it is all predicated on my performance. So how do I get my cut? I think it might not be an issue today. This is just an isolated incident with one guy who mentally wasn't doing well and put $1,500 on the Falcons for some reason. God only knows why. But I think down the line, this is going to be a much bigger issue that they're going to have to deal with.
To me, it's something that is going on already.
Yeah.
It's very hard to prove. And I think the NFL, it's going to be one of those things the NFL eventually is just going to kind of turn the blind eye to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, all right, well, yeah, sure, this dude bet on himself to get 5 catches, to win whatever, and he ended up dropping 1. So it's like, all right. I think it's just one of those things that eventually the NFL is going to be like, oh, yeah, no, we didn't see that. What?
Yeah.
What? No, that didn't happen.
As long as they don't get caught and therefore do not have to deal with the PR nightmare that would unfold from them getting caught. You're right. They will turn the blind eye to it. So I think that it sounds exactly like something the NFL would do.
Easily.
Yeah. So Calvin Ridley suspended for the year. We wanted him on the Eagles. I would have taken him on the Eagles. Mike Williams also re-signed with the Chargers, and Devontae Adams is going back to the Packers. Also, Chris Godwin was tagged by the Buccaneers. So a few different guys on the wish list are gone. Of people that are left, what do you think strategy-wise right now we're going to do at wide receiver opposite DeVonta Smith?
I don't know, man. I mean, I tell you who I don't want. I don't want anything to do with JuJu Smith-Schuster.
It's funny you say that because I'm not entirely sold, but I think he's the most likely. I remember that story last year that they did offer him a contract and he went back to the Steelers instead. So I know they at least have interest in him.
I don't want to deal with it. I don't need to see his TikTok. I don't want it. I don't want it. I want nothing to do with it. I don't care what he's going to do on the field. I'm just going to be annoyed by him like more than I should be. Don't get me wrong, he's a great receiver, but to me it'd be like getting Jackson Mahomes.
Oh.
And that's horrible.
Jackson Mahomes in a helmet is pretty much
like I don't want that. Looking at what's out there, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but Amari Cooper possibly getting released. He is a guy, and I know KMS is probably gonna be like, shiny new toy type thing, But yes, like that's a guy that I would take because we know what he can do. We've seen him torch the Eagles for years now. Yeah. He still has it, and he's going to have a decent quarterback, depending on who the Eagles quarterback is as of now, Jalen Hurts. So I would take him in a heartbeat. Allen Robinson, I would love to get my hands on. Yeah. I mean, Chicago's a mess, and I don't think Justin Fields is going to be a great quarterback. So if we could somehow get him, if he doesn't go back there or whatever he decides to do, I would love that. That would be my top priority. And then the only other guy really out there that I saw was what's his name? DJ Chark.
Yes. And that's another name where it seems like they're constantly being linked with one another.
Yeah, and I don't hate that. I mean, he's still young enough, and he's been on the Jaguars, so it's tough to like say if this guy's really all that bad or all that good because it's the Jaguars. So I'd like to see, and I think you could get him, and he would be one of those guys you could bring in on you're not going to spend a lot of your cap room there.
No. And
he could end up being a great sign. Like that would be somebody who comes in, you get him at a cheap deal, and he goes off, has a career year, which that I'm all for.
I think the good thing about those 3 options that you mentioned, I feel like you could get them on team-friendly deals for a variety of options. Like Allen Robinson, the Bears offense was anemic, so he looks like a veteran that might be past his prime, but in reality, they couldn't throw the football. So he's just out there doing glorified cardio. JuJu Smith-Schuster coming off an injury, so you haven't seen him. He was out most of the season. It's a what have you done for me lately league, and he hasn't done anything because he's injured. And then DJ Chark, like you mentioned, played for the Jaguars, and we can just leave it there, and that obviously affects your production quite a bit. So all 3 of those guys, I think you could get on team-friendly deals. So I agree with you. Any of those names where would I be doing backflips when we sign, like how we signed Bryce Harper? No, but I'd be like, all right, yeah, I can get behind that. I believe in this move. That's fine, opposite of DeVonta Smith. Or just flat out draft Chris Olave. That works too.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, you have the cap room. Wide receivers clearly in need. And if you're going to go out, sign one of these guys on a team-friendly deal, but also draft one. You have 3 first-round picks right now. So unless you're trading them to get a quarterback, which at this point, Deshaun Watson, is he really worth 3 first-round picks when you haven't seen him for a year? Not in my eyes.
No, because the reason we haven't seen him isn't like the reason we haven't seen
Exactly.
JuJu Smith-Schuster. So that is a whole bag of worms right there.
I mean, the guys that you were going to trade those picks for are now gone. Rodgers and Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to offer that for Jimmy G, and I don't want Jimmy G.
No.
There's no one else out there. So use these 3 first-round picks to do the right thing, Howie.
Mm-hmm.
Do the right thing for once in your life. Okay?
Yeah. There are so many opportunities to not screw up this time.
It has fallen into your lap here. You have 3 gold bars in your hand. Don't drop them. Take a receiver. Help the team out. Give Jalen Hurts what he needs to succeed. Do what you didn't do with Carson Wentz. You got him as one guy last year. DeVonta Smith had a great rookie year. We saw what you can do when you hit on a first-round draft pick. Great rookie season. Do it again. Give him another wide receiver to work with. It's not that hard. There's plenty of great options out there in this draft. And like I said, you have 3 first round, 3, not 1, not 2, 3. Yes, I pulled the LeBron James, not 1, not 2. You have 3 of them. Go out and get a weapon for my quarterback.
Thank you.
As of now.
Amen. Perfect sermon. I would cut it here if I could and post that everywhere possible. You're right, though. And there are so many prospects in that middle range where it's going to be an abysmal quarterback draft, it looks like. People don't seem to be really sold on the majority of these quarterback prospects, but there are other positions where there are multiple guys, edge rusher especially, wide receiver, 2 positions of need that seem to be pretty strong, pretty deep. And you could land both of those positions. You could also go out and sign a guy. There are so many opportunities. The opportunities are endless. It's like when you walked in the Old Country Buffet. You're like, where do I start first? What meal do I want? It doesn't matter. I could come back for seconds. That's how we should feel right now. We have cap space to sign a receiver. We could draft them. Or you could just sign 2 defensive ends. You could bring back Jordan Hicks. There are so many win-win moves that the franchise and the fans could get behind for Howie Roseman. And they're in a great position.
And now it is up to him to not screw it up. And that is what makes me so nervous.
It makes me very nervous. It's just, there's optionality for them that they haven't had in quite some time. Don't squander that optionality.
Yeah. Howie is a 6-year-old kid who's just been given $100 bill to go into the 7-Eleven on a way to the road trip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping he doesn't come out with any change at this point. Go in and spend all the money, kid. I want you tired by the time we get there. I want you hyped up, and I want that crash.
It's the scene when in Parks and Rec where they send Andy and his wife, April, I guess the girlfriend at the time, to the store to get supplies around the house, like silverware and stuff like that. And Ben Wyatt gives them a list. And he's like, here's the things you need to get. And they get there, and you're like, all right, here's the things that the franchise needs. And they buy a marshmallow gun instead. That's my worry with Howie Roseman. It's like, all right, here's the list. Here's what you got to buy at the store. And he's like, what if I just bought a marshmallow gun? No, that is not on the list. That's not what we want.
It's the last thing we need.
What if I just got a marshmallow gun? What if I just got Kenny Pickett? No.
What if I got Kenny Pickett and then traded for Jordan Love?
Yeah. What if I just used all 3 first-round picks on Deshaun Watson? No. Whoa.
Quarterback
factor. Not what I sent you to get. Well, let's talk about the quarterbacks real quick. Russell Wilson traded to the Broncos. That was an eye-opener for sure. Aaron Rodgers back to the Packers. That kind of seemed assumed, but there was the possibility that he was going to retire. So the Russell Wilson thing, apparently he wouldn't waive his no-trade clause to go to Philadelphia. That pipe dream is finally over. It's been going on since 2012. I think we can officially call it.
I'm okay with it. Listen, Russell Wilson's a great quarterback, and I'll be honest. I don't see a lot of his games. Him being on this in the West Coast, the 4:00 hour, I'm watching Red Zone. I'm taking naps. I'm in and out of sleep. The food that I ate's catching up with me. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I've studied Russell Wilson tape. what I have seen from him, and granted, the Seahawks aren't the team they used to be, he, to me, is on the decline. And he's not somebody that I would be willing to give up those 3 first-round picks for. And what the Denver Broncos gave up to get him, to me, seemed astronomical. Like, that's a lot to get this guy. And granted, the Broncos may think they're in a better position to win, and they have a good receiving core and whatever, and they think he's their guy. He very well might be. And I think the Broncos are going to be a competitive team next year. They're in a very tough division, though.
Then that's kind of why I like it for them. They had to make a move for quarterback because they were going to be second, if not third fiddle for quite some time in that division. They were staring at a decade of not competing because Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes are in that division. Those are 2 solid teams, Super Bowl winning team in the Kansas City Chiefs. So they had to make a move, and they had the infrastructure in place. Like they've got a lot of solid core guys and skill positions. I really like Jerry Jeudy. They signed Melvin Gordon, but they also drafted Deontay Williams, who's going to take over, and they had that 2-headed monster. The defense is solid. They drafted Patrick Surtain last year. So they have that infrastructure, but it was a team that realized without a creme de la creme A1 quarterback, we will not compete. And how long Russell Wilson is at that level remains to be seen, but it's a move that you had to make to remain competitive for this next half decade. So for them, I totally get it. I would be fine with the deal for sure if I was a Denver Broncos fan. For us, I'm staring at it and I'd be like, okay, well, we still have to fix wide receiver. And if Kelsey retires, then we need to bulk it up the offensive line. Linebacker's still an issue. Safety's a problem. And I'm counting down the list and I'm saying, all right, well, how's this any different from Russ on the Seahawks? These are all the issues that he was having where the team around him wasn't succeeding. So they weren't succeeding even though he was good. So I get it for the Broncos. For us, I don't know so much.
Yeah, and like I said, I think the Broncos are definitely going to be a more competitive team this year, and they weren't bad last year at all. They hung around. Quarterback was their main problem. I mean, they went back and forth with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Teddy, unfortunately, injury prone. He has his moments where he's a good quarterback, but you need someone with more consistency, and Russell Wilson will bring that to them. But yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it seems like a lot to give up for the guy. But their receiving core is nice. I mean, Jerry Jeudy and Russell Wilson are definitely going to have some nice connections.
Yeah, they've got really solid. I mean, they still they've got Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton will be back, Jerry Jeudy will be back, the kid from Penn State, what's his name? KJ Hamler. Hamler. Yeah, so that's a solid core. Javonte Williams really came on strong in the backfield as well. It also looked like this week, this got totally lost, but Von Miller has been teasing going back. So they picked up a draft pick for Von Miller, and then he's just going to come back. That seems like it works out pretty well for them. So they seem to be in a pretty good spot in a team that needed to vastly improve because it is an absolute arms race. It is the Cold War out there in the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, that division is scary, especially when you're looking up at 2 quarterbacks that obviously Mahomes has already proven he can win a Super Bowl and can pretty much get there anytime he wants at this point, and the Chiefs are just a powerhouse. And then you have Justin Herbert, who's just lighting it up in what now will be his 3rd year. So he's only going to get better. He was great his rookie year. He's even better his 2nd year. And now going on to his 3rd year here, they can get him a little more help. Watch out.
And they have a solid amount of cap space, one of the best situations in the league. Kevin has mentioned this before, and I totally agree with him. Would be a great landing spot for Amari Cooper. Pairing him with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, wow, look out if they let that happen. That would be insane if they can pull that off. So I think a good move for the Broncos. I think we're on the same page. I just didn't see if the Eagles the only reason I saw it for them is because in 2012, we said we were going to draft him. He said, if you draft me, I will get you a championship. We just never fulfilled the prophecy. So I think that was the only reason why I had to accept it.
Well, I mean, we got a championship anyway, so we didn't need him.
Yeah. We got our championship. He got his championship. We just never got it together. Just never worked. It's the relationship where one person's in a relationship and the other person's single, but then the other person gets a relationship and the other person becomes single, and the timing just never quite works out.
Never worked out.
where you're together.
Timing
That's us and Russell Wilson. What are you going to do? So aside from that, it looks like it's Deshaun Watson or bust if you're going for quarterback. And this year,
Yeah.
that really sucks. I used to love Deshaun Watson, but I just can't pull the trigger right now.
No, I mean, too much uncertainty. The only way I'm doing it is if you can get him a cheaper price, which the Texans aren't going to do that. They have no reason to. You know what I mean? You're not going to lower your cost just because of you don't know what's going to happen. You'll hold on to them until you figure it out at this point. I mean, it's tough. I mean, the only other thing I could think of in the quarterback situation, if a team is that desperate, they could maybe talk to Tampa Bay about possibly, hey, can we trade for Brady's rights? Because I know they, listen, we'll trade for his rights. Let us talk about a retirement.
Just in case. Or you just put that in your back pocket. For instance, in fantasy football, I would always draft Josh Gordon, where I say to myself,
smart,
get reinstated. He's not going to be suspended forever. I'll just hold him on the bench, keep him there just in case. We could just trade the rights for Brady, just in case he wants to come out of retirement. And you sell it to the Bucs, you're like, there's no chance he comes back. He probably won't. But if you want a 5th or 6th round pick for the rights, just for the rights, we'll give it to you. It's you're gonna be probably a low risk, high reward for you.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, if I'm the team that's doing it, come August, I'm like, yo, Tom, listen. I get it. You didn't want to do training camp. It's fine. You're old enough. You don't need training camp.
Don't do training camp. I wouldn't even care. You can come to Dollar Dog Night with me.
We'll have a few dogs, throw back a few beers. I'll give you the playbook. You learn it. You take as much time as you need. You want to come back around week 4? Sure.
Yeah. We don't even need September. Come, they see us on Columbus Day. We'll be fine. We'll keep Jalen Hurts and we'll let him start 6 games. He's not
exactly.
Awful. Let
him grow into the role a little bit, and then be like, "Listen, all right, Jalen, gonna need you to like maybe fake an injury or something here."
Yeah,
Tom wants to come out and play.
He knows he was on Alabama, and they went to Tua, and then they went back to him. He understands the whole process of it. It'll be okay. Yeah, I think we got this all squared away.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. Look what happens when we're in charge. On a real note, I wouldn't be shocked if we traded one of our first round picks this year to try to get us into the quarterback sweepstakes of next year, because Bryce Young and CJ Stroud will be coming out, and it is already pretty clear that they are bona fide studs quarterback wise in college. I think there's going to be a race to the top. And by the top, I mean the bottom record wise for some of these teams to try to acquire those guys in next year's draft. So maybe we trade one of our first round picks to kind of, wet our beak a little bit, see if we can get in on that race too.
I mean, I don't hate that idea. At this point, I'm invested in Jalen Hurts. I'd rather give him the weapons. Let me see what he got us to the playoffs last year. The team wasn't supposed to be there, but we made it. They didn't look great, but they didn't look horrible against Tampa either. I mean, they went up against a great team.
It wasn't. So Jalen, you can't be totally sold, but I think he's earned another year. I think that's fair.
Do I think he's a guy that's going to win us a Super Bowl? No, I don't. But it's a possibility.
Yeah.
You get the right guys around him. You build the defense. You make the right play calling. Anything can happen.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking build this team out a little bit more, spend some money in free agency. If you don't use every pick, that's fine, but let's use some of these picks to kind of invest in this offense, invest around him. If you invest more in the offense and he still doesn't take that next step, then you know what? You say, all right, let's throw our hat in the ring. We're throwing our name in the goblet of fire so we can compete for Bryce Young and CJ Stroud next year. And you just you have your guy for now. If he works out, he works out. If he doesn't, then you try to get the quarterback in next year's draft and you try to load up the ammo to go get a different guy. And in the meantime, you start building that roster out around him. Yeah. So I think you're in a good spot. I think, it's a good day to be us.
Agreed. And listen, with the amount of draft picks we have, if you draft a quarterback, I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. But don't do it until the later rounds. Don't waste one of the first round picks on them. Don't waste a second round. But if you're talking like between the 4 to 7 range, you want to take a quarterback that's there that, maybe he's a gem, kind of just there. Maybe he didn't put up the great numbers in the combine. Maybe he didn't have a great season, but he's just kind of there. You take him, you bring him in, let him learn the playbook. Hurts goes out and stinks this year. The guy comes in and maybe he's better, so I don't hate that. I'm not saying don't address the quarterback position this year. Just don't do it too early.
Yeah, I don't see any of these guys in the first round being the guy who gets you closer than what Hurts is. I really think the cash crop is next season. And it's like, you bought yourself some time to figure it out. So let's figure it out. Let's run it back one more year with him. But let's build, because we keep running into the same issue. There's no quarterback who's going to come here and succeed if we don't invest around them. So we'll work on that process. And then when we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, we'll be sitting here doing this show next year. Kevin will be on kid number 2. Eddie will probably be on kid number 7 that he doesn't know about. And we'll be talking, all right, we're invested. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, who do we want? One of these guys. So we bought ourselves some time, and let's invest in the meantime and build this roster out.
Boom. Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself.
There we go. And with that being said, we will be trading for Deshaun Watson by the time this episode gets released.
A year from today, it'll be us trading 3 first-round picks, 2 futures.
Yeah. Yep. And it'll be like, okay, well, we traded for Watson, and now he is suspended. So now what do we do at quarterback again?
And look at that. Carson Wentz has just been released by the Washington Commanders. Let's bring him back.
Yeah. We'll talk ourselves back into it. Oh, my goodness. Could you imagine if he goes on and starts his second career as a backup quarterback and ends up back on the Eagles as the backup guy? That would be
ready for this.
Yeah.
He goes the Nick Foles route.
No. That would
back here, wins the Super Bowl as the backup.
I don't think you could dream up a more perfect career for him. That would be perfect. It would right every wrong that he's ever had in his entire career.
It really would. I'm in.
We've solved a lot of issues on tonight's show. We've written all the storylines. We just need to see them followed through. All right. Well, that's all I got for tonight. I thought that was a fantastic show. Our Ginger on Ginger segment was fantastic. I really appreciate you, Walsh, holding it down for us these past 2 weeks. Last week was straight up inmates running the asylum. This week was more organized, and it was such a perfect show. The NFL gave us the gift of content in the offseason. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was so good to talk about this stuff. So before we get out of here, let everyone know again where they can find you.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Keith_Walsh18. Check out some of my blogs on Life of a Philly Fan. Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll be back next week. Again, we're getting back on the interview circuit. So we have an interview lined up. We'll definitely be teasing that later this week. Kevin should be back next week. I don't know. It's a kid. It's a kid, so you never quite know, but he's pretty sure that he'll be back next week. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about the Deshaun Watson trade that we just forced into the air by giving every scenario but that. I appreciate everyone listening, watching. Please follow us on Twitter at Birds vs. Boys Pod, on TikTok as well, and then subscribe to that YouTube. Thank you very much. Carson, we will see you in the link this season, buddy.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things.
I got 2 phones.
Upside alert. Upside alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there. There's no hope. Hope is gone.
If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes.
Bob Hope.
I'm going to drink bleach.
That is the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.